Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Welcome everybody to Tiger Claw Radio. This is your host, Critical Failure. It's time for the Steam Summer Sale. In addition to that, we got some chip tunes, we got some little this, little that. We're going to have a good old time here on TCR. Alright, it feels good to be back, boys and girls. And with that, let's listen to the next chip tune. In the top 40, we're counting down the top 40 tracks of the 8-Bit Collective Archive, as picked out by our good friend Hemrock, the Madman, picked out 40 tracks out of 8,000 plus, listening to every single one. We are at track number 12. This is Bursting Bubble Boy, and it's from Joule, Joule, number 12. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. More when we come back. Alright, after taking a week off last week, I actually do have a van cast that I recorded several days ago. So let's visit the van before anything else. Well, boys and girls, here we are again in the van. It is 8:12 p.m. on a Saturday, and we've got 82 degrees outside, and man, oh man, is it muggy. It is a muggy day here in Maryland. and I'm getting ready to do a gas run for my wife, and it's a good time to talk some video games. The GOG summer sale is in full swing, and even me, who doesn't really buy GOG games too much anymore, I dropped in and bought a couple of things. Nothing to speak of per se. I saw they have the silver box Dungeons and Dragons collection, right? So the old 1980s CRPGs, and I couldn't rattle off a title or two that's contained in that box off the top of my head. But I really liked the gold box collections that came out, late 80s or early 90s, whenever, and those came out on Steam this past year, and I was really enjoying those. So the silver box, considering that it's one package for $10, I thought I might pick that up, especially if it goes on sale. GOG had it for like $6.50 or something, which looks like a good deal. So we'll see. I'm not sure if I'm going to pick it up there or pick it up on Steam. The Steam summer sale, the big one. That one, I think it's the 28th that it's slated for. Right now, it's the 24th. So it's pretty close. I think it happens next week. So yeah, we'll see. I don't have a huge list of stuff that I want to get per se, but I never really do. I've got a monster, wish list over on Steam with like 300 plus games, and it's not that I want 300 plus games. It's that those are the games I marked for, like, hey, don't forget this exists. That's what that is. So when these big sales come around, that's usually how I do my shopping. I open up the wish list of 300 plus games. I have it sort not by price, but sort by discount, and it'll show me, if there's anything on that list that's like 90% off or something like that. Those types of percentages are rare, but they still happen occasionally. And there you go. Then I could do my Steam shopping, in a matter of moments. So things have been so crazy here at home. I'm thinking, what have I actually been playing? And it hasn't been much. I went through a couple of days this past week where I was really into good old-fashioned Rudy Tooty point and shooty. Played all the way through the original Unreal Tournament. Started playing through Unreal Tournament 2004. And I got to a mission that I couldn't get past. Unreal Tournament 2004 has something called, I think it's Double Domination, it's called. So it's the same old domination, but there's two control points instead of 3, and you have to have them both for 8 seconds in order to win. Well, when you're playing single player, there's one particular match where it just ends up, I don't know what it is, like, I'm getting swept every single time, and I played it like 3 or 4 times, so I don't know. I kind of put it aside for a while. But beyond that, when I have computer time, I'm involved with another chain game, RPG Maker chain game. This time it's RPG Maker 2003, and the ball is in my court, and I'm, doing the best I can to put together some content. So hopefully that'll be good. I can tell you for sure it'll be a long time before that project sees the light of day, because there's at least 8 developers, and I'm number 2. So once I finish my part, it's got to make quite the rounds before it'll be available. I think I hit the end with The Witcher. That's another game I talked about previously. I played it long enough to now I have an understanding of what it's like. And most people who don't like The Witcher complain about the combat. I'm talking, of course, of the first one. And honestly, I didn't mind the combat so much. It just was really, I don't know. I thought it was going to be very sandboxy, but when I play it, I don't get that impression. It feels very linear to me. Very linear, and like actual merchants, and dealing with traditional RPG trade is much more of a burden. They're fewer and further between, and they're always specialized. So if let's say you've got some books and you want to sell some books, you got to find the book guy and sell them there. And I hate it when games do that. I really do. All right, I'm at the gas station. Let me get the gas. I'll be right back. All right, gas is in the car. And as usually is the case, once I get that all done, that's about it where I'm at with games right now. So I'm going to go ahead and send you guys back to the studio. I'll see you there. So that was recorded several days ago. Back again in the studio. The GOG summer sale, I believe, has come to an end. And the Steam summer sale is now in full swing. Actually, let's check to see if GOG actually did wrap things up. I didn't pick up anything else from GOG since that was recorded, but I'm looking at Steam, and the silver box is on sale there as well. Never picked it up on GOG, so I might add it to my Steam collection. GOG's having trouble loading. No, the summer sale is still going on. All right, way to go, GOG. I might. I had considered picking up the original Diablo, which is not greatly discounted. It's $8 instead of 10. But Diablo is a fun game, and yeah, it's a fun game that I haven't played in quite some time. So we'll see. I don't know. Yeah, here we go. I wanted to figure out what games exactly were in the Silverbox Classic, Dungeons & Dragons Silverbox Classic. They are Shadow Sorcerer, Heroes of the Lance, Dragons of Flame, and War of the Lance. So those are the 4 games, and they're currently going for $6.69 US at 33% off. So, I'm on the fence about this one. I'm honestly not sure. I love the old Dungeons & Dragons games, but I think the Gold Box era was when they were at their peak, to be perfectly honest. I don't know. I know there's a couple of people who listen to this who know old CRPGs very, very well, so let me know if I'm out of line here. I noticed when looking at Final Fantasy games that some of the old Final Fantasy games have been removed from the Steam library. I have, I think it was 4 or 5. Like, the games are still around, but they changed the listing or something. So the one that I put on my wish list, it's not there anymore. Hold on, see if I can get you some details. Final Fantasy. It's the Finalist Fantasy. Or did I remove it? I don't know. Oh, jeez. Okay, so what happens in Steam if you're looking up, say, Final Fantasy VI? Yeah, they're still around. I don't know what it was that happened to me, but I have some of those old Final Fantasy games on my wish list, or I did when I was looking around yesterday. And I clicked into them to see what their prices were, and it was like Final Fantasy VI old version. And it said this has been pulled from the store. And being a Steam user, that's always alarming, because I know that companies will pull games for really no reason. And I was kind of hoping, like in my head, I put the Final Fantasy series in like a category where that wouldn't happen, Which is ridiculous, because when it comes to Final Fantasy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it has happened already, hasn't it? Like, they pulling one version in favor of another or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, Final Fantasy 9 I think is $10, give or take. It's like 10 and change, because Square tax. Yeah, $10.49. They can't go $10 or below. Just wouldn't be right. They wouldn't be Squaresoft if they did that. So that's one that I'm heavily considering picking up. Valheim is $12. I've heard really good things about that game as well. Saga Frontier Remastered is $12.50. That's another one that I kind of want to pick up. What else? I know that there's a couple other really, really good ones. Yeah, the Steam sale is going on. Head over to Steam, check it out. You know what it is. I can't believe Night Trap is not on sale at all. That kind of bugs me a little bit. When I had the brief period of time I had the Amberneck RG503, the one where the shoulder button broke inside of 2 weeks, one of the games I was playing on that was Night Trap on the Sega CD, because I had never played it before. It's jank, but I enjoyed it. And then I saw how the remastered version, some of the quality of life updates they gave it, and I kind of wanted it. And, excuse me, you can still get that game like on Steam. It's $15, but here we are in biggest sale of the year, and I was hoping it went down in price. I can see a couple of games where that happened. River City Girls 0, still $15, didn't go down in price at all. Yeah, which really sucks. Dead Knot Signal Lost, a game I really, really wanted, which I'll probably still get. That's from the same group that made Zafe House Diaries, which is an old favorite of mine that I loved. They put this out in like sometime last year, and yeah, so that's another one I wanted to pick up. Didn't make it on sale though. Big bummer. Capcom Fighting Collection, that's one I gotta get. That's half off. That's usually $40. That's got some of the weird ones, like that gem fighting game. I remember playing that on an arcade cabinet with Engie at MagFest quite a few years back. That's a good time. Monster Rancher 1 and 2 DX. That's a game that I had Monster Rancher 2 on the PS1 like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and I loved it. But I can't imagine how it would hold up on Steam, not being able to create monsters out of CDs. I wonder how that would work. What else do we have? Speaking of old CRPGs, Grid Cartographer, which is usually $50 on Steam, is $25. Still way overpriced. River City Saga did not make it on sale. River City Saga 3 Kingdoms, still $30. That sucks. Real bad. AEW Fight Forever is out. That's on sale, 13% off. But it just came out in the last couple days, so it's $60 regular price and $52.19 if you get it like with the, just released sort of discount thing. Yeah, that's a good looking game. I wouldn't buy that one fresh off the shelf though. Well, at any rate, we're almost at the 20-minute mark, and right around now is when I like to thank the sponsors. Here on Tiger Claw Radio, we are a Patreon-sponsored program. So these select few who give of their resources to make sure we can come back every week, I like to read their names off in a hall of distinguished gentlemen. And they are EmeraldRangers.com, Hemrock, Darabka, and Tecmo Balls. Thank you guys so much for keeping the show around, and I hope you're enjoying the party. With that, I want to switch gears and go over to something that Hemrock brought up in the Discord. And let me bring the Discord up so I can see exactly how he puts it. All right. Okay, so Hemrock talks about something that's going on over on Atari Age. And he says, you have until July 23rd to make your purchases. Atari Age is not going to be selling unlicensed homebrew games, which, it's something they've been doing forever, and it kind of sucks because I don't really think anybody else has been doing that, right? I mean, I talk a lot about buying repros from AliExpress, right? But one thing you can't get from AliExpress is a repro of an Atari game, which sucks. So I'm hoping this is just unlicensed games and they're not going to sell repros at all. But that doesn't mean they're not going to sell repros at all. But Hemrock asked the question. Let's see, and I navigated away from it like a dummy. If I know you may not be in the market for one of these homebrews, which is admittedly expensive even when on sale, but if you had to give a top three, what three would you choose? And I knew right off the bat, like when I read that, Halo 2600 and Wolfenstein VCS. Those two, bar none. Like to the point where I'm considering dropping $60 to get those two. If you're not familiar, Halo 2600 was created by Ed Fries. It was a big deal when it came out. It was originally released as an extra for a convention. They just handed them out to people who went to some convention. And that was it, and they disappeared. The ROM was distributed freely, legally. So it's always been easy to get, and it's a fun game. It's a top-down kind of run and gun sort of thing. There's not many of those on the Atari. And I remember when it came out, a lot of the prominent gaming YouTube channels of the time, particularly Games 31, that's the one that sticks out the most, they were showing off these Halo 2600 cartridges, and I remember playing it in a browser. It's a fun game. So that's one. The second one is Wolfenstein VCS, which is a ROM hack adventure. A really, really good ROM hack adventure. Excuse me. And the cartridge art they use, oh man, they knocked it out of the park with the presentation. Even though it's just a Venture ROM hack. To the point where the reason I have Venture in my collection is because I saw this ROM hack, and I was like, yeah. I didn't have Venture, and I was like, all right. So those two, those like right off the top of my head. Now, you said pick three. The last time I went to Atari Age and I was looking at cartridges, they would also make repros of existing games, but they had a policy where they would write the word reproduction on it to make it so that you couldn't like pass it off, try and sell it as a fake. So the third game that I said was Air Raid, and if you don't remember Air Raid, that was like a baby blue cartridge that was shaped like the letter T, and it was the world's most expensive game for a brief moment in time when it sold for like $10,000 or something, and this was 10 years ago. It's one of the few Atari games that I made a video for back in the heyday when I was still doing like edited essay type videos. Back, I think it was one of the ones I did during my RetroWare TV run. So those are the three. I know the last one doesn't really count as like an unlicensed game, but I don't know. I've cruised Atari developer websites, and I probably wouldn't have to look too far to find another really good one. Hang on a second. Now I'm curious to see if you can actually get an Atari cartridge off of AliExpress. Atari cart. Let's try it. It's loading. So I looked up Atari cart, and what I get is NES games, Game Boy games, Famicom games, miscellaneous parts. No Atari cartridges. Yeah, that's just not a thing that they sell on AliExpress. They are expensive, but I'll tell you what video game lasts longer than an Atari cartridge? If you buy an Atari cartridge, you're buying a stone tablet in video game history. And you know the old phrase, they don't make them like they used to. I can't think of something that applies to more than the durability of Atari cartridges, especially like first-party Atari cartridges where they had that door that would slam shut over the circuit board, and you couldn't open it with your bare hands. You had to like stick in a screwdriver or something to pop it open. So they didn't even get dusty the same way like NES games did. Oh man. Yeah, that sucks. I hope that we see another like prominent Atari retailer handle the homebrew games, because lots of cool stuff on that system, which is weird because if you look into it, Atari is like a maddeningly difficult system to program for, to like develop for. So unless you're using some sort of like hack tool or like ROM hack development suite, like if you're just trying to write it in the assembly language, good luck, man. So like every homebrew game we have for Atari is something I always had massive amounts of respect for, because having taken the time to develop something like that. So I don't know. It sucks to see a major outlet for that stuff go away. It does suck indeed. But at least we have a month. Normally when this kind of thing happens, we don't get that window. So props to them for giving us a month. And big thanks to Hemrock for bringing that up, because I haven't been to Atari Age in forever. Forever. Do you remember Triverse from Scenic 7 PR? Good old Carl. He used to advertise his clients on Atari Age, on the Atari Age forums. So especially you, Hemrock, might get a kick out of that. I know there was a really prominent thread of like, a podcast to listen to, and everybody was really into the Retro League. This is many a fortnight ago, indeed. All right, what was I talking about here? So, with that Atari Age news, and with the Steam sale going on, I'm left with the question, what have I been up to for the past couple of weeks? Well, there's not much time to play, but there is some, and mostly what happens is I find when I sit in front of the computer, even if I have time, I turn on the mic and I just can't make anything come out. Have you ever experienced that? Where it's like, I can't, if I can get like the first couple sentences recorded, the floodgates open and I'm fine. But I just can't, sometimes I just can't make words come out. But during that time, I played Carmageddon, mostly for the last couple days. The original Carmageddon Max Pack, which I have on Steam. I played that quite a bit. I never beat that game, but I'm about halfway through it, or at least halfway through the main game. That one comes with like the Splat Pack expansion, I think it's called. So if you're halfway through the main game, then you're like a quarter of the way through the whole software package. So I played that. I played Carmageddon TDR 2000, which is like the third one in the franchise, I think. I played that for a little while. It's not nearly as good, but you know. I played a little Resident Evil 4, the 2005 Steam release. And the funny thing about Resident Evil 4 is that the first like half hour to hour of that game is easily the most like spook heavy, nerve-wracking of the entire game. And I went back to it and I played like through the first bit, through like the village siege portion, and it's like, man, I don't remember this game being this spooky. It's spookier than later Resident Evil games. I kind of forgot that Resident Evil used to be actual horror as opposed to just like horror action. But of course, if you stick it out, that goes away and it becomes schlocky, run and gun sort of stuff with poor controls. But man, I do enjoy it. Resident Evil 4, and what got me to go back to that game was I read something about them remaking Resident Evil 5, because that franchise is in this trend of, they started back at the beginning of the franchise and they just started remaking everything again. I mean, I guess it's not a bad thing to do. The games that the remakes that they've made have been pretty unique experiences. The best one, the one everyone loves, Resident Evil 2. If you play that game and then go back and play the OG Resident Evil 2, those games are nothing alike. They really aren't. Apart from the fact that they take place in a police station and, you know, it's completely redone. Not at all remastered. It's the new experience. This is the age where remakes are like a bad thing because they get done to death. But Resident Evil, for better or for worse, they've done a pretty good job. Resident Evil 3, the remake, people didn't like that one. I played it. It's okay. It's okay. It wasn't as good as 2, but it's okay. So I have high hopes for this new one, because the original Resident Evil 5 didn't do very well. It isn't considered like a beloved game, but man, do I ever love that game. I love Resident Evil 5. One of the great co-op experiences on Steam. If you can get somebody to play it all the way through with you, wonderful, wonderful experience. Alex Swingle and I dug in deep, and we played all the way through the game, and then we started playing the Mercenaries mode, and we knocked out all the Mercenaries maps until we got the double S rank. And then the second set of maps that's supposed to be like DLC, we knocked out all those as well. And that took a lot. But man, it was so much fun. So much fun. Yeah, so I don't have a whole lot of news, information about it, except I know they're working on it because there was somebody who was talking about, there was an actress who was talking about voicing the lady character. I can't even remember her name. Sheva, there you go. Sheva. So there you go. It's a little like, I didn't do too much with Resident Evil because if you might remember a year or two ago, I went head over heels and just that was how I spent my game time, was that franchise. But so I touched it a little bit, and that's about it. I also played Arma: Cold War Assault. Arma is a long-running franchise that like people love that I didn't really play much. When I used to have, before I built the Panzer, when I was on like my cheesy laptop, it couldn't run any of the Arma games. Not even the OG Arma. And I bought Arma 2 in those days because that was when DayZ first came out. Before it was like its own game. It was an Arma 2 mod. So these are games I've had in my Steam library forever, and I wanted to try them. So I set up the original Arma thinking I would go through the franchise, hour here, hour there. And it was fun, but weird and slow. You have to stay in formation, and I don't know. It's a weird game. It's very much a simulator and not like an action game, You got to crawl, and you take your time just so you can get the one shot, and maybe the guy would die, maybe he won't. But the version that I'm playing is the first version, which was originally entitled Operation Flashpoint and not Arma. So the graphics are really like weird and dated, but at the same time, it plays very familiar to like DayZ or something because the engine is the same, DayZ being a mod for Arma. So I don't know, that's pretty cool. It's a weird game, but it's a franchise that gave us a lot, right? PUBG, the whole, what do you call it? Battle Royale thing, that really came from Arma. I think that was an Arma 2 mod as well. So I had some fun with that. I'm not going to play that game to the end. No way will I do that for sure, but I would like to play Arma 2 and actually play the game instead of, the DayZ mod. That's how much they charging for that during the sale. The original Arma is 99 cents. Very much worth a 99-cent purchase. I would endorse spending 99 cents on the original Arma because you could load it and you could play it for 1 hour and be done with it. And if you get 1 hour on the dollar, then you got your money's worth, in my opinion. I still say that after all these years. All right, hang on a second. I got to check something real quick. Okay, so apart from Arma, I spent some time playing some games that could be modified manually. And you might remember last week I was talking about playing Unreal Tournament and stuff like that. Well, I played all the way through Quake 3, which is a quick play, by the way. If you have the skill level down, it's a quick play. Played all the way through Quake 3, and I played a little bit more of the original Unreal Tournament. And I started looking for sites where you could get custom maps. Now, this is something that we don't do much today, especially if you're a Steam user, because we have things like the workshop. And if you're not a Steam user, we've got things like the Nexus for mods, where you can get a little installer and you can run a manager and things like that. But in the early 2000s, when we were doing CD-ROM gaming, and I was collecting big boxes of games, not because they were a novelty, but because that's just how video games were sold. If you wanted to mod something, that involved going to a site and getting a file and figuring out how to plug that file into your install. And I was looking at, different things like that just because I wanted to see what sites were still around. I played particularly, I was able to get a handful of custom maps for Quake 3 Arena, which was cool. There was one that was themed like the original, like E1 M1 from Doom, but it was like blown up real big and really detailed. That was a really popular map on the downloaded page that I was looking at. I did that, and that's probably the one I played the most. And then I did like a couple of other, let's just see if they work type things. Then I started looking at, download pages for like games that I've never actually modded before, like the original Ghost Recon. Any guys ever played that? I have Ghost Recon on Steam, but that game, in my head, it was an original Xbox game. And it was one that we had on my Xbox back in like 2002 or 2003 or whenever it was. And we had it alongside like the original Halo when Halo first came out. So Ghost Recon was a game that we would play. If we were getting tired of Halo, then we'd switch over to Ghost Recon. It was a lot slower paced, but the arenas were much, much bigger and stuff like that. It did have split screen, like deathmatch, but it was only 2 players and, again, much slower paced. It's a fun game in its own right. As it turns out, you can get custom maps for it. So I bookmarked a page, and I didn't reinstall the original Ghost Recon, but I don't know, I was just looking at some of the stuff that that exists for it. Duke Nukem has a really cool site called the Duke Nukem Repository for Duke Nukem 3D maps, and that's a site that's been around forever and ever and ever. But one thing I'll say about that site is it's like disappeared and then come back and disappeared and come back. So that's a good reason to, like, if you like Duke Nukem 3D, like, maintain a little, local library of your favorite custom maps. So downloading things manually and plugging them in was kind of fun. Like, I got Lara Croft set up as one of the bots in my original Unreal tournament, which is pretty cool. It's just a different way of getting a new experience, which I still think is a good time. All right, how we doing here? Oh yeah, before I move on, speaking of mods, the original Carmageddon, which is easily my game of the week this week, because I really enjoyed playing that one. There is a mod for the original Carmageddon, and there's not a lot of mods for that game, by the way. It's not one of these games like Doom or something like that where you can do anything in it because it's just wide open and there's a million mods. No. There's a small handful of things you can get for the original Carmageddon that I was able to find. One of them is a track that looks exactly like the original Grand Theft Auto, like Grand Theft Auto 1 Liberty City. It's the first stage you play when you play the original GTA. And I haven't installed it, but I'm looking at the thumbnail, and it's on my desktop. I've seen it on in passing on YouTube, so I know it exists. Like, it's not like, it is usable, but that looks really, really cool, I have to say. Apart from that, the only real, like, mods I see are, like, there's two, like, deleted maps, not even custom maps, but maps that were, like, in the beta version that were then deleted. And then apart from that, there's, like, a whole slew of custom cars. It's mostly cars. Like, there's Will Smith's head and stuff like that, which is even funnier now that he's been disgraced. So Carmageddon's a good game. It is a really good game. It took a little bit of effort to get into it back when I first played it because it has really weird driving mechanics, but I still like it. Carmageddon's great. Given the Steam sale, it's currently $250. Very, very much $250 worthy. The only things I've actually picked up from the only things I've actually picked up from the Steam sale, I bought Franchise Hockey Manager 8. I think it was 8. No, excuse me, Franchise Hockey Manager 9. Not that it matters to this crowd, but the latest out-of-the-park baseball hockey game went down to $10, and I picked it up. I really like sports management games, which you won't hear me talk about much on the air, because what are you going to talk about when it comes to sports management unless you're talking to, like, a sports crowd? Actual sports, I could give a crap about. I really find it difficult to like professional sports. Semi-pro sports, I'm all about it. I love semi-pro sports if I get the chance to watch them. But pro sports, no, I'm good. Nobody should be getting $20 million to throw a ball or catch a ball or do anything like that. But that is a tangential thing for another time. If you like sports, the last thing I want to do is take that away from you. Because by all means, embrace your hobbies, the things that gives you comfort. You know what I mean? All right, let's see what we got over on YouTube. Desm101 checking in 13 days ago. Man, it feels weird when I miss a week. He has a time signature, 27 minutes and 55 seconds. Now, if I remember at the time, we were talking about old FF games, and I asked him, hey, did you play this when you were a kid? And he says, yes. I went and bought FF2 with my birthday money shortly after it was released. Me and my brothers played it a lot, but we didn't understand leveling up, really, and we would run from fights to get to the next story parts. The SNES Nintendo Power Guide had a preview of it, and we were stoked to give it a try. That's a really cool story, actually. It's weird to think about missing core mechanics like that, because nowadays we have game FAQs and YouTube and whatever. Even game FAQs is antiquated nowadays. But I remember playing one of the Super Nintendo Final Fantasy games, and I did not know how to run. It wasn't a game I played like all the way through, but I remember having one session with it my older brother was like, hey man, you got to play this. I didn't know how to run from things. It was those top buttons, you know? And I remember my older brother, for whatever reason, he was like, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. You can't run away. It's not what you do. I was like, all right, I guess. I think that might be all. The only comment we had from last week on YouTube. Give me a second here. Yeah, boys and girls, that is it. You know what that sound means? That means it's time to round it up. Round it up, pack it in, call in the dogs, and put out the fire. That's another episode in the books. And whatever it is you've got going on this week that you're dealing with, I hope it goes well for you. And whatever happens, good or bad, keep on keeping on. Because I'm rooting for you. And I'll see you next week.